Welcome to Three Witches and a Druid podcast, a Canadian podcast about paganism in today's modern society. And now, Three Witches and a Druid podcast presents Shenka.
She's always been a lady, but we treat her like a whore. Taking, never giving till it's gone. Our greed is never ending, always wanting more. Never satisfied with what we've done. We throw away our garbage, we throw away our pain, we throw away our children, we throw away our shame. We sacrifice the future, but we never take the blame. Gaia cries, Gaia cries. One day when it's all gone and she's nothing left to give, when we've left her drowning in her tears, maybe when the time comes we will find a way to live, turn to love and sacrifice the fear. We throw away our garbage, we throw away our pain, we throw away our children, we throw away our shame. We sacrifice the future, but we never take the blame. Gaia cries, Gaia cries, Gaia cries, Gaia cries.
Hello, and welcome back to Three Witches and a Druid, where we sit around enjoying some more lovely mead once again and talk about our experiences as modern pagans. And we have had a question come in. Somebody was wondering about the differences in witchcraft. Now, we don't personally each have a lot of experience with it all the different paths, but we each have little bits of information I think we can share. I am Margot.
And I am Maeve.
Gwen.
And I'm Brian. So yeah, we're drinking, what is this? Dunham's Run, Lily of the Pink, mead from New Brunswick, is that right?
Yeah, it was from New Brunswick, yeah.
And I'm not a mead person, and it's not too bad. And so that's saying something. I'm enjoying it okay.
I am a mead person, I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And then we also opened up
We're all staying here tonight.
Island Honey Wine Company Lavender Mead from PEI. It's just 13.5. It's really high.
It's a good thing you're getting a drive.
Yeah, so differences in witchcraft. I'm not going to sit this conversation out, but I don't really know a whole lot. For most of you three. I can talk a little bit about podcasts I've listened to about American folklore witchcraft. Oh, I actually had a drink the other night with an individual who's writing a book on Akkadian witchcraft.
Oh, nifty.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've talked to a couple of Akkadian pagans, and they're like, I don't think there's a lot of witchcraft like in our culture. I'm like, there has to be.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I had beers with a Druid who was actually writing a book on Akkadian witchcraft. And like, she is a bit, I wouldn't say she's a master, but she knows quite a lot. And a lot of the times she'll reach out to people who she thinks knows more than her. She'll be like, yeah, I want to know what you know. And she's like, oh, I had this really great person I follow on Tumblr. And she's like, oh, that's me. So I thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, so I'm really excited for her. I might push and prod her a little too.
Yes.
With that book.
I think a lot of those, like the Akkadian witchcraft, they would never call themselves witches. It's just sort of folk magic, a lot of it that's part of their culture.
Agreed.
I think today they're comfortable saying
Yes.
witches, millennials down. But originally, as it came down, it was just a folk magic thing. It was just a cultural practice.
It was a cultural, like Appalachian,
Or the Pennsylvania Dutch.
Pennsylvania Dutch, or even my great grandmother, who was, clean the church every week for the service on Sunday, who was as good a Christian as ever breathed, was a gigantic witch.
Well,
But
and
if you would have said that to her, she would have had a heart attack.
Yeah, well, and that was part of the conversation. She considers herself like a borderline Christian witch, and it's because of her upbringing. But she was saying she's very much a witch and very Akkadian folklore based, and that's just who she is. At some point, I'd like to have her on the podcast. I don't want to talk on her behalf a whole lot. Plus, I actually have no idea what she was talking about. But I thought it was super exciting.
I think it's very
It
cool.
would be very exciting.
Very cool. I can remember many, many years ago having a conversation. I think it was after the Gaia gathering that was here in Halifax, that Maeve was determined that she was going to develop a Nova Scotia brand of Wicca, and so we use. See, this is where some of the confusion can come in, because we often will use witchcraft and Wicca interchangeably, and they're different things.
Wicca's a type of witchcraft.
Wicca's a
Yes.
type, it's a religion that was based up at a certain time, whereas witchcraft can be associated with any religion or no religion, just a relationship with the natural world. But yes, so I think Maeve would love a little Akkadian witchcraft history, and you can bring in some Germanic roots, you Lunenburg girl, you. And
It is interesting because, I had a British grandmother, and I knew that on May Day you were supposed to go out and get the dew off the grass and put it on your face for beauty long before when I was 4 years old. But my grandmother would never thought, my British grandmother would never
that's
thought
not
it
a
was-
witch.
No, or the jar of sea glass in the window. That was automatically done. Just
Well,
things and
who here-
fairies and all of that. But they weren't witches.
Who here's been to Shetty Camp?
Many years ago.
Well, yeah, want to know how many tea readers are up in Shetty Camp?
With that giant basilica that they have in Shetty Camp. That
Yeah,
is the
where
most
they do
shocking
tea readings,
thing.
probably.
Yeah.
Everybody's got that aunt or grandma who's reading tea leaves or turning a deck of playing cards, or someone's reading palms. Oh,
Yeah.
but we're not witches.
No, not witches, not at all.
No, we're not witches.
Just to clarify, one thing that's discussed, but it's often missed. Not all witches believe in deity.
No.
And I personally have never found that to disqualify them from being pagan. they're still, to me, I would still classify them as pagan. They themselves may not classify them as pagan.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that, because I think the dictionary definition of pagan is polytheistic earth-based religion.
Pretty sure the dictionary definition of pagan is
farmer.
farmer.
Farmer, yeah.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? The more modern is a polytheistic earth-based religion, and if they don't go for deities,
I would not be pagan.
Oh yeah, and it's
Then I would
perfectly
not be
okay.
pagan.
It's perfectly okay for them to choose not to identify, but I wouldn't say no to them.
Yeah, I see these polytheistic named archetypal deities as archetypes that we have created out of some kind of eternal energy, life-giving force.
Or
We're
full
very
of
close to May the
necessity
4th
and hope.
here, and we're all. So I struggle with then saying I'm polytheistic, because I see them as human creations that have, in an egregore manner, taken on a life of their own. So if that was indeed the religion, the definition, then I would not be pagan, but I have identified as pagan since the 80s. So, but mind you, people can identify as clouds now, apparently, and that works too. I'm not entirely sure how that goes. Yeah, interesting.
That's a topic that we might need to research.
That's a whole different episode.
But
Yeah.
I will counter slightly, Gwen, with what you said about the deity and the being made up. And it's not, counter's not the right word, but society does make, these archetypes up. But the interesting thing is, to me, is that in the year, 500, you could have been sitting in Turkey and somebody in modern day Chile could be thinking the same thing. Doing the same thing with the same concept. So
there's these unique energies that we name and we box off. That's like if other people invest in them in that way, that they recognize them as, but just for me, I have a heart. Yeah, I'm not telling anybody else how to see the world.
Well,
Goodness
I think
sakes.
as human beings, since the beginning of time, we've had to be able to label and name things.
Exactly.
We're only comfortable with something if we can name it. And so if that means we are naming these gods and goddesses or these concepts,
then they become useful and
Yes.
valuable to us.
and you can connect with them.
now, I think maybe I might be the flakier of the two of you, between the two of you here.
Well, that was never in question.
I think that, yes, because there's always gods and goddesses of rain or thunder or rocks or this or that. But I think maybe because it is so, it's chicken or the egg in a way. Were people doing that before there was speech? Was there a concept before there was regular speech to talk about it? So I think I might even believe that maybe the energies were even there a little bit before they got names put onto them. Specific energies for specific things. You know what I mean?
Well, there's so many gods and goddesses out there that exist in different cultures that have just been renamed or reappropriated.
Exactly.
Because the energy of the ocean is the energy of the ocean is the energy of the ocean, no matter what you put on.
Exactly.
So I think the energy
but Poseidon has a different face than maybe Manannan or something.
But in the end, they're both still energy of the ocean.
But they're still the energy of the ocean, and so that's
there.
For me, I may culturally connect or whatever with a specific archetype. And within ritual, I'm quite comfortable working the way many pagans are. No matter how many differences we may have in belief, we're not like certain sects of other religions where they keep dividing down, and then they're dividing their congregations or their collections of people into smaller and smaller groups because they can't agree on belief. We're like, you believe this, you believe that, that's okay as long as we get into ritual together. We can all stand around a circle together. So I'm quite comfortable doing that. But rather than connecting with Poseidon, I'm going beyond that to connect to the energy of the ocean because, Poseidon's an asshole. But
I mean, that's one of the appeals, I think, of a lot of people, again, sweeping generalization, is that we know we don't all have to believe the same things, And if you believe something different than me, that doesn't make either one of us wrong or right.
Yeah, we're all on the same road. We're just going in different cars.
Right,
That's the way I see it. And that is one thing. I'm going to go back to when Gwen was speaking about the Gaia gathering, and I got really wound up by the end of that. And I have a lot of that written
you
down
rolled your eyes
somewhere.
pretty hard there.
Yeah,
I enjoyed much of the Gaia gathering. It was a lovely event. I will not go on it that way, but I have some of that still written down. But what it was, I was never so proud to be from out here in the Maritimes as I was that weekend. After that weekend, because it was like, maybe people are going to bicker amongst themselves because someone's an ass and someone doesn't this or that or whatever. But I've never, ever heard anyone crap on what anybody else believed. I might not like you because you're a jerk, but that's okay. You believe what you want religiously. Yeah. Where I found some people from other places, they were bitching at each other about the theology of it all. It's like, what the hell, are we Catholics here? What's going on? I was so shocked. There was this one, and a couple of them going at each other. I'm like, who the hell cares what each one of you believe?
That's happened a few times at APEG.
Not as often.
Not as bad as that.
I remember Brian and I were on the committee to bring Gaia Gathering here, and Brian was very young and idealistic, and he was a real dose of
I'm still young
medicine.
and idealistic.
He was a real dose of good medicine to all of us who had been beaten down by jaded, and oh my gosh, the frustration with, we ended up calling, we had code words for the talking head, but these self-appointed people that thought and I'm better. Sure we seem very provincial and stuff for the people from the center and the bigger centers and BC and all of these sorts of things. But maybe it's unique to our area. I don't believe so. I believe paganism is very pluralistic and very welcoming of different from other religions. Mm-hmm. They are more so. But we do have bad experiences, don't we?
With my sister called one of them, was he a prize racehorse? Anyway, I'm so sorry, that was funny. But no, it was good. So back to
the actual topic at hand.
So I'm gonna butt right in. I started out in the most traditional of BTW.
What is BTW?
British Traditional Witchcraft.
Right.
Covens. I was in a Gardnerian coven in the beginning. I will say, they have a very straight set of procedures and training and rules and things, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think my basis of liking things done in a particular fashion with the ceremony and the tools comes from them, because that's how I first learned. And so you do have your Gardnerians, which it is an initiatory. They have the degrees and all of that. It can be really great if that's your if that's your thing. Again, it's really great. And Alexandrianism, the Alexandrian one branched off from there.
Yeah, at first he didn't want to admit that, and we're going back to the 60s, and I think he's dead now, right? So but he didn't want to admit that, but it all comes out in the end.
Let's just put it out where it was. He didn't get along with them, and they kind of said, "Get away from us." So he started doing his own thing.
And if it was now, he'd be Instagram influencer or something, because he knew how to work the system really well, better than they did. He was just that little bit. He played it. He called himself the King of Witches. He and his wife, who was quite young and beautiful.
Maxine, the Witch Queen. There's a book.
Yeah.
I do know that with the Gardnerian, they can be quite secretive. Mm-hmm. Originally, now that may have changed. This is many years, when it was around early 90s. They can be quite secretive, but that sort of changed a lot when all of a sudden there was all kinds of books. And from the later 90s on, the last 20 years,
I think they still have. I still think they'll agree to concepts or whatever. I still think they keep the intricacies of ritual and stuff private, and fair enough.
That's fine.
Fair enough. I think there's value. I've never been part of it because I'm really bad at joining things. I have skated by the ADF So close, haven't I, Brian? I get all. I love.
I'm just
I love all
gonna gift
the
you a membership.
I love
like
all the local Grove members and everything, and then the thought of joining a group. That I'm not the boss. Let's be honest.
Well, the great
Maeve
thing
gets this,
we
right?
need a secretary, so you should be the secretary.
I could be I'm a good secretary.
You are a good secretary.
I do get that.
But
So the originals started with, like, say, the Gardnerians and then the Alexandrians. And though I do remember having his workbook, I'm not super familiar with Buckland. I think he came out of that too,
well,
didn't he?
He came
Sideways at them.
two states, and he basically used Gardnerian formats, but instead of using like the god and the goddess as these overarching archetypes, he put in Anglo-Saxon type deities and stuff, and he twisted it a little bit and shifted it. But a lot of, whether they want to admit it or not, a lot of groups came out of that, right? And he came out of the Gardnerian tradition, and then he adjusted it, with the Anglo-Saxon deities. But then he arrived when he's here. I think this is, Neil Gaiman called it. There are American gods. It's a new land, and it has evolved in its own way too since then.
Because even we say, our religion's 20,000 years old. Most of what we're doing, most of modern witchcraft came out of the Gardnerian tradition. And Gardner, he rather begged, borrowed, and stole from Golden Dawn, the Masons, and Crowley.
Yeah.
And
little
he
bit of the Blavatsky.
Blavatsky, he put it together because we really cannot determine what they were doing.
That's
There's
what
really
I would
not that
always
record.
say when people came into the store and they wanted to see the book. Where is the big
There
tome?
isn't.
We
Yeah.
are not
There-
a people of the book.
We A, don't have one of those, and B, this is a very modern practice,
It is. It's since the 50s.
and we
Since
can.
LSD was introduced.
is the witchcraft. The witchcraft laws were repealed in 1951,
Yeah,
and they couldn't put you in jail anymore. So some people who had sort of been doing this quietly and accumulating it, then all of a sudden came out to the public, and that's when things took off. We
I
really
wouldn't say
are
they suddenly came out in the public. I think they very slowly trickled out. to the
depending on
public.
where you were. If you were
Yeah.
in England and the New Forest and all of that, okay.
Yeah.
It didn't come here too soon. But yeah.
when I've had many people ask about it, and I remember explaining to my mom too that we don't know what they did in ancient times. We don't know how they worshipped. But from archaeological digs and information we've found, we can make educated guesses of how different rituals or different rites of passage might have been honored. But
As long as we're willing to adjust as new information comes in, because I think when you have a book, you're tied to a specific you're tied to a specific dogma or something. And I look back to, and this is years old, but it's still a reasonable example. There was a grave of a Viking warrior that it was touted, it was taught that it was the Viking warriors, the quintessential Viking warrior grave. Look at these grave books. Look at this. Look at this. This shows you what a good Viking warrior looks like. Blah 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 blah. At the same time, they were saying that it was a culture that was divided. There was men's work and women's work. It was divided along the basis of gender, and that's what we taught because that's what we knew. Because as people dig up information, they interpret it from the culture they're in. And even the most idealistic or whatever, you still have unknown biases. You have your latent biases that you're not aware of. DNA comes around and they test this to see if they can find where this Viking warrior maybe came from. And they find out this Viking warrior is a she.
Yeah.
That is
She's
happening.
a she.
Yeah.
They have found several of those graves
They've
now.
also found several of those graves that have, Viking memorabilia, but the individuals from Africa or the Middle East.
Exactly,
Yeah.
from other countries,
Yeah.
which you know,
So
the secret part of me is very happy about when white supremacists try and use that
it doesn't
culture
work for them anymore. So instead of there being gender works, there's men's work and women's work. There was big people work and little people work.
Or
That's
rich
right.
people living and poor people living.
Yeah.
or willing to fight and wanting to farm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
In the more modern times, you have like the Dianic witches, which is women-only covens, and they only follow the female deity. Kind of, they have that. And then, of course, there along comes Scott Cunningham, which just blows the top off everything, which is a wonderful thing. But I find when you were saying I can be a cloud, I'm not that familiar with a lot of the ones that have come up in the last 10 years. I won't lie. I don't know much. I know more about the traditional ones.
You have a very strong base in traditional. I know a lot of modern classifications that you find in social media now are like green witch, which maybe is based around working with plants, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Eclectic witch, where you draw from different cultures or different pantheons.
Now, most of these are just breakdowns of the various paths. So individual themselves can focus a little bit more on a specific thing.
Exactly.
Like
They narrow
witch,
their
red
focus
witch,
of
white
vision.
witch. Yeah.
Which is the appeal again.
Yeah.
I've always seen and noticed from working in the shop is that to know that you can pull your inspiration from different places to create something that works for you. Even selling Scott Cunningham's book, he's got sample rituals in there. Give them a try. If it works for you, great. But if there's something in there that's you're not feeling, well, start your exploration and see if you can come across something else that feels like
he said that in his book. So this is just the basis.
Yeah.
But that is, and I kind of had this conversation the other night. You know, like I say, I'm very Wiccan based, but there've been many different things. I don't stick strictly to that. If, as you said, something appeals to you, something works for you, it's like, holy cow, I never would have imagined that. Look, this is this, and different cultures or different practices. I'll just, roll it all into one. That is the one wonderful thing I think I really find today.
One of the reasons I personally chose Druidry is because it's not necessarily like I'm not walking in a hallway. I'm walking on a path, and I can always step off that path at any time. But by defining my path as Druidry, I can find the resources I'm looking for easier by looking for Druid-type things. Now, at the same time, though, I can lean into heathenry and look up that stuff and be interested. I can lean into shamanism and look up that stuff and take those things back along my path. But I know as long as I walk the path of a druid, the information I find is things that are going to interest me. About 2 years ago, the internet had this weird hate on for any part of like the modern day aspects of paganism. They were trying to throw out the reed and the rules of three. It's like, oh, those are modern things. They're not ancient in history.
And that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The reed is about being a good person. Don't throw out the good part of your path.
Just because Gardner didn't actually write this or didn't write about the rule of three in this way or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's good to know your history. It's good to know the factual basis of things. But in real lived experience, to have this idea that if I do shit comes back. It doesn't matter.
It's in every religion. Well,
Right.
I mean, the whole no lying, cheating, stealing, coveting, killing is every single religion and secular law.
Yes.
What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
Right.
You know, I mean, there are shades of gray,
There's
but
definitely lots of shades of gray.
lying, cheating, stealing, coveting, and killing, those are you don't want to do that.
Even I would say some of that's a little gray. Like for me, stealing's okay if it's required.
So
if it equates to your survival,
I
it
have
equates to the
this
survival
neat
of your
story. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, is from Uruguay, and she's been in this country for at least 10 years now. And she and my brother love to go for drives, and he shows her all of Canada. And they're driving, and she's like, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, it's a Wayside Library." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And so he explains that people build these at the end of their driveway or whatever, and they put in books that they've read and they don't need any more. And it's like, take a book, and if you want to leave a book, you're welcome to leave a book. But it's for people to read and to share. And she goes, yeah, that wouldn't work in my country. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, they'd steal it. And he's like, it doesn't matter because
it's free.
Because it's free. And she's like, no, they'd steal it. They'd steal the books, they'd steal the box, they'd steal the post, they'd dig up the cement. So we were killing ourselves laughing. But you know what? The rules are different in Uruguay.
Yeah.
If you're hungry during COVID, they were dying and laying in the streets because there was nobody there.
So, like, personally,
I don't care.
I forget which country it is that if you steal like a piece of fruit or bread or this, well then you obviously are starving, so it's okay you stole it. I do get that.
Yeah, but like, one of my rules is if you see someone stealing at the grocery store, you didn't
see anything.
You didn't see anything.
Yeah.
Keep your mouth shut and move on.
For food and all that.
Be very, at the same time, be very grateful that I do not have to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not going to say you go rob a bank.
No.
I'm just saying, like...
But I witness that, I allow that to be, and I think to myself, this is a reminder that when I go to the cash register, I can pay for my groceries.
But in all honesty, Nova Scotia Power today posted their profit levels.
They're
go steal from them. Yeah, go steal from them all day long. 100% support that. Break into that guy's house and take a shit.
Nova Scotia Power they're all
joking.
It's terrible.
No, I'm not.
It's
we're not going to get sponsored by Nova Scotia Power.
No, and the Nova Scotia Water Commission's right behind them.
Oh, I know.
And the
gas,
the gas,
everything.
All horrendous.
I am tired of hearing oil prices are going up and up and up. And I am tired, like you hear, well, it's the taxes. The taxes are a flat rate in Canada. The taxes have not changed.
No.
And the price
per
barrel.
Profit levels. For
I was going to say the price per barrel is up, but it is not up commensurate with the price we are paying at the pump.
Yeah.
They are capitalizing on uncertainty and global whatever, and what they think they can get away with.
So when we're talking about pagan ethics, all of that is disgusting.
Yeah, it is
to me as a pagan.
Because I imagine that their profit margins went quite down in COVID. People weren't driving or going anywhere or that or whatever. They're just jacking it up. Everyone sat home. They're jacking it up to make their money back.
So gross. See, that to me is disgusting as a pagan.
It is.
I hope it's disgusting to everybody in general.
Again, we agree that community is important.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do well at the expense of others. So these executives of specific businesses, now I understand, for instance, right now, over COVID, more than ever, markets have gotten smaller, so people like Amazon and stuff. So things have concentrated into small groups of very large suppliers, say businesses or whatever, and trying to get rid of those monopolies.
It's horrible.
It's hard to take it away once it's happened.
And we need the monopoly that Nova Scotia Power has and all of that.
Yeah.
Now Nova Scotia had MT&T forever and ever and ever and ever. Telephone and telegraph is what it was called. And when I was a young person, and even in my early, off in the university and all that, using a long distance phone call was horrendous because they had a total monopoly. Now, for $20 a month on your landline, you can call anywhere in Canada as much as you want. So
it's funny because dealing with customers placing phone orders, I've had people call and want to place an order. I'm like, I'm really busy. I have a line up the till. Can I take your name and number and I'll give you a call back? Well, it's long distance. It's like, we're not like in the 70s when it was Sunday after 7 o'clock was the cheapest. And you would have your list of everything you wanted to talk about by the phone so you didn't forget anything.
Because it was 20 cents a minute.
And your father still said, hang the phone.
Okay. Let's try to pull the mystery machine here back to the highway and get back to Witchcraft.
We were talking about blasphemy. Yeah, so Witchcraft. So, again, as I said, I'm not familiar with You Can Be a Cloud. And I know... Okay, and for me, and maybe someone in the future can explain it to me, because I'm going to say this, and I'm not criticizing in the slightest. I'm saying I don't quite understand it because no one's ever really explained it to me. I suppose people have started to split up witchcraft and deity worship in some incidences. They don't put them together because if you're doing witchcraft, how can you do that? Are you just using elemental energies?
Oh no, there's lots of witches
I
out
was
there
going
who
to say,
do
I
not.
primarily never have prior to social media. Like in my personal practice, I'm connecting with the energy of the land as opposed to deity in my own private practice.
Okay, I
But
get
you're
that.
an
Maybe-
animist.
I'm an animist.
Well, I get it. Okay, no, I understand that absolutely. I think I'm interpreting it wrong, the statement wrong, because I'm very very animistic, obviously.
So
I do that.
instead of you could possibly create a circle or not, but perform an action of some sort, but want to connect with the
energy of the
energy of the energy of the plants and
Oh,
the energy of the stones, and say, connect with that spirit and say, I know that you are, it's this specific plant, and I understand that you are this, and that will you help me with this?
Okay, I was misunderstanding that. I absolutely get.
We're
Yes,
talking
absolutely.
about people who maybe just want to do magic and witchcraft for the sake of doing magic and witchcraft.
I need that
Yeah.
love spell.
And it is outside of their connection to deity.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I understand now. And you know what? I do that as well. A lot of the time, if I'm doing magic, you're connecting to the energy, to the crystals, to the
crystal,
to the
itself.
earth. Okay, yes.
The earth.
I guess I was misunderstanding. And I know that I can go a long time and not perform any type of magic. But I suppose that I'm very into my deity connection
Yes.
separately.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. Okay.
So back to the modern aspect, though, and one of the great things about paganism and witchcraft in general is, anyone can identify as a god. Anybody can be anything they kind of want to be. Nothing is telling anybody what path they need to follow, what deity they need to follow. That's kind of the great thing, is everybody can sort of do their own thing and still be comfortable and feel safe within our community. The great thing I personally have tried to make strides for is that everyone in our community is as welcome as we can make
Absolutely.
them. And that obviously, that for me as a druid, that's one of my main virtues is hospitality, is making everybody feel as comfortable and safe as possible. So that be it any person of any sex, any gender, any race, anything, no matter what you are, no matter
Any
what you
belief
identify, no matter what path you may follow, be it you are a witchcraft of the bottle, or be witchcraft.
We are witchcrafting
We
on
are
the ball
witchcraft
today.
of the bottle, or witchcraft of the fairies, or witchcrafts who focus on hexing the moon. Doesn't matter to me. You're welcome in my community.
Don't understand how you hex the moon. No one has explained that to me.
I will send you the podcast on about
Hex the
that.
moon, yeah, and no fairies.
And no fairies, yeah. They hexed the fairies. That's what they did. Oh, did you not know that?
They hex. Oh my god.
Yeah, in fact, they hexed the fairies and the moon, and it was a whole thing.
Natural consequences.
Did they have a different meaning for the word hex?
I don't know.
You must send me the episode.
I'll
listen
send you
to
the
it.
episode.
Isn't that
Oh,
interesting?
before the episode was started, we were talking about Gardner, and I said there was a really good episode. I made a mistake. It's not about Gardner. It's about Crowley. I'm gonna send it to you guys, and you guys need to listen to it. It's hilarious. At one point, he takes over like a school of magicians, and the police come and say you have to go, and he just has to go.
He's a really interesting dude, and I really have to talk about him more than I'd like to, because he's a real object of interest within the prison system. You know, if anybody gets
We
into the
can do a whole
metaphysical,
episode on him.
and he is a very interesting guy. But I always say, learn from his experience. He is not a role model.
No,
He is a
Boy,
life lesson.
that's a lot.
Yes,
That's,
learn from his arrogance.
That's
Learn
one.
from his
I
arrogance.
think that's one thing pagans have learned more than anything, is that a lot of the forefathers you learn from their experiences, not from who they were, because a lot of them weren't great people.
We don't have heroes in that way.
we
don't
not
have
at all.
heroes. We're
And we're
Except
critical
Cunningham.
enough thinking
yes.
that we can recognize the faults of our forefathers,
Mm-hmm.
or as opposed to some other spiritual paths who still like 100% revere the people who have created their religions
Yes.
to their own detriment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The only real exceptions come here.
Yes.
Well,
Now we're gonna get a message like Cunningham was a monster.
Yeah.
I don't. You know what? I don't know what his personal life
No,
was
I know.
like.
And
I know
I'm
what his
perfectly okay not
Yeah.
knowing.
I
Yes.
know what his books were like, and I know what they did for me,
And what he contributed
and
to
what he
the-
contributed,
as a
and what
whole,
many
yeah.
other people. And Gardner, like him or love him, was he a creepy old man with a bunch of young girls running around naked? Was he a soul, whatever kind of
Yeah.
perv guy? I will give him his due in that he did sort of bring it out into the public.
Yeah.
And helped to spread it, to help to spread it around and make it more known to people. I'll
Right.
give him his due there.
Okay.
I mean, we can argue forever about what kind of person he was, good, bad, or ugly.
Or we don't have to argue. We can just say,
Yeah,
whatever.
He
He
is what
did
he
this.
is.
I have no personal investment in his.
Yeah,
in
and
that.
whatever, yeah.
We apologize for not actually accomplishing anything.
Oh,
in
we
this
did. I think we
Oh, we had a
accomplished
great
a little bit.
conversation.
We
Oh, yeah,
did.
yeah.
And I think that one of the best ways, when you think about the different types of witchcraft, because a lot of times people are looking for what appeals to me. What am I? And sometimes people want to practice one that is based on their genetics.
Yep.
Am I a Celt through and through? Am I Germanic through and through? Am I this or that? Some people like that. Some people will go beg, borrow, or steal, like myself. Don't be afraid to look around.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to try different books, try
Lots of
different things.
open rituals, open groups. Go see what suits you, and then approach and find
Yeah.
out.
And
As Marco worked in a local witchy shop, that's your best.
Yeah. And
Explore.
don't feel that the only definition of a coven is 13 people.
Oh goodness!
Oh,
no.
good, no.
The number of times people are like, we can't have a coven because we don't. And it's like, you don't want people in your coven that you're not comfortable working with just to create the coven. And don't stunt yourself and prevent yourself from the work and growth and exploration that is out there for you just because there's only 3 or 5 or 10 of you.
Yeah, one of the best working groups I ever belonged to just had 7.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful,
Best working group I've ever participated in. I think we're up to 22 people.
Right
Fortunately, 8
on.
of them are children. And they're just pure
Chaos.
goblins of chaos. But yes, and it's great.
Yeah, so, that's very good. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. We're really, really, really grateful and appreciative that you listen to us. The whole thing always just astonishes me, as I say all the time, that anyone is listening, and we really appreciate it.
3 Witches and a Druid podcast would like to take a moment to thank our amazing Patreon supporters. Today, we shout out to Danny, Tania, Sarah, Lore, Kay, Linda, Jennifer, Highland Horde, and Larry. Without your generous support and contributions, we couldn't bring you this magical content, and we thank you for listening.
So until next time, everybody, merry meet
Mary Part.
and merry meet again.
Blessed be.
This has been 3 Witches and a Druid podcast. Thanks for listening.